10 lepers. It reminds me of the little counting song that I used to sing when I was little. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians. We could change that. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little lepers, I guess. But today, I want to give those lepers a name. So often, when people are outcast from normal society, they became a nameless statistic, a number. And that's what happened to these lepers. They were required to live separately from the rest of society, and if anyone came close to approaching them, they were expected to cry out, "Unclean, unclean," so that that person would stay away. Some of these lepers might have been priests or Levites, but were no longer allowed in the temple. Some of them might have been fishermen, but were no longer able to fish. Some may have been mothers, but were no longer allowed to be with their children. So let's give them a name so that they can be called people instead of lepers. The Levite will call Simeon. That's a good Jewish name. The fisherman will call Barnabas. His hands were so severely damaged by the disease that he could no longer mend his nets. The mother's name was Miriam. She had a daughter and 2 sons who were now living with her sister-in-law 2 days' journey away. There was a man named Jacob who was a merchant, but when his disease was discovered, he lost all his clients. There was an old man, we'll name him Ezra, who was living with his son in Jericho, but forced to move away. There was Agrippa, a Greek slave, who was banished from her household. There was Susanna, a widow, Agabus, a day laborer, and then there was the Samaritan. We'll name him Gracias, because he returned to give thanks. Of course, all this is fantasy. No one really knows what the names of those 10 lepers were and who or what they were in their life. But I believe it's a safe bet to say that most of them didn't know each other prior to contracting the disease. So what did they do when they were banished from normal society? They formed a community of their own. To the crowds of people in the streets and villages, they were lepers. But in their own little group, they had a name, an identity, a unique story of their own. Isn't that what people do when they share a common cause, whether it be out of the misery of a shared illness or the joy of a shared interest? We have book clubs, we have bowling leagues, curling groups, all kinds of little communities in which people band together to share talents and interests. We form community for mutual support. We form community for comfort. And we form community to give ourselves identity and definition. For when we join a group, we don't become just like everyone else in that community. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. When we feel comfortable in a group, we can be ourselves with our own unique talents and abilities, and we bring these unique talents and abilities into the group, not to serve our own needs and desires, but to share them with the others, with the group. Of course, Jesus knew the importance of community. After all, he is a part of that original community of 3, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And the Creator leaves his imprint on all that he creates. He called his disciples to a community of faith and commissioned his apostles to carry on this community throughout time when he says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit." And that community that Jesus had instituted has continued even to this present day, the community of faith that we name church. And that's what brings us here this afternoon, to celebrate this community of faith, by sharing in its very essence and inspiration with this Eucharist. But our church is struggling today, isn't it? Scandals, shortages of priests and religious, declining membership, closed churches. It's always a tragedy when people use their role in a community to advance their own needs and their own ego, for that is contrary to the pattern of community that has been given to us by the Holy Trinity. When someone says, "I don't go to church anymore because I don't get anything out of it," they're looking at it in the wrong direction. Because it's not what we get out of the community that makes it work, but rather what we put into it. The only way a community can truly grow is by all its members bringing their unique talents and their gifts to serve the needs of the whole. So, we are called to be engaged in our church. Bring our talents and abilities to this faith community to help make it vital and alive. Take the opportunities that are offered to pray and to play together. Join the choir. Join one of the service organizations or the social organizations in the parish. Encourage your children to participate in the various events throughout the year, to be part of the youth group. You know, this is a wonderful parish, it really is, with so very many wonderful people in it. Be a part of it. Share your gifts. Allow the Holy Spirit to point you the way to community. In today's gospel story, only 1 of 10 lepers returned to thank and praise Jesus for his gift of healing. And I suppose it's true that only 1 out of 10 today respond to that call to Christian community. But we can look at our church with confidence that it will continue on despite all of its struggles. For we have as our head the very source of community itself in Jesus. And as St. Paul wrote to Timothy, if we deny him, he will deny us. But if we are unfaithful, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. The first thing that happens in the rite of baptism for children is the presider asks the parents, "What name do you give this child?" At our baptism, we have all been named by God. Each of us have been given our own identity, our own special blend of talents and graces that makes us who we are. Let us bring these graces to our faith community so we can be a bright light in a dark and troubled world. And let us watch with hopeful expectation for the day when we can be everything that God created us to be, as a unique part of that one and that original community of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.